So good morning, DENA. Greetings from this city of brotherly and sisterly love, Philadelphia, PA. We are live and live streaming this morning from the beautiful campus of Lasalle University, which we know is DENA's best university. Those of you in the Bronx, please know that Manhattan College is DENA's best college. Today's event has been in stages of preparation for 17 months, so thank you to all those who have been involved in making today a reality. This is an association celebration, uniting Lasallians in association from across all corners of our expansive district, but also together, right here and right there, wherever you are gathered today. We are gathered at a timely moment in history during this year of Lasallian vocation, the 300th anniversary of De La Salle's passage to resurrected life, and the 10th anniversary of DENA, where life abounds abundantly. In fact, on January 1st, we welcome our 31st ministry, LaSalle Educational Center in Homestead, Florida. We may not have the 266th successor to St. Peter with us, but we are thrilled to have the 27th successor to our founder right here in our midst. At the last general chapter in 2014, some of the names rumored to be Brother Alvaro's successor were Gustavo, Jorge, Tom, Bill. So on May 20th that year, as I was driving in the D.C. area, I received a phone call from Melissa Maxey, and with much excitement she said, "Brother Bob is our new superior." I paused and said, "Who's Bob?" Sorry. Fortunately, the participants at that chapter knew exactly who Bob was and how he would become an outstanding superior. Yes, this graduate of LaSalle University and also graduate of West Catholic a remarkable career as a scholar, missionary, vice principal, auxiliary visitor, and general counselor. This cigar-smoking, scrapple-eating, Phillies fanatic, brisk walker, avid reader, basketball player, a man with boundless energy, clear vision, superb writing, and as we will discover together in a moment, wonderful speaking skills. A man of faith and zeal. Yes, this is Bob Who. Let us face the reality. Our worldwide institute today is in inspired hands at a time when we need it. Thank you for being among the 5,000 Lasallians doing remarkable work with 27,000 young people entrusted to our care. Bob, thank you, our very dear brother, for your incredible leadership, example, inspiration, and your presence with us today. Lasallian Reflection 5 has the theme, Great Things Are Possible. Indeed, great things are happening institute-wide and right here in your district. Lasallians, it is my honor to welcome home and now to welcome to this podium our Superior General, our very own Brother Robert Schieler, our Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's happy to be home. And thank you, Brother Dennis, for the wonderful introduction. For those of you who are watching, we had some preliminary remarks from Brother Dennis, which were very entertaining. So I have to confess, I'm going to be pretty much straightforward. I could not match Brother Dennis's wonderful show, tell, dance, performance he had a little earlier. I also want to take the occasion to express my sincere gratitude for the many prayers and best wishes for you from my health situation. And I want you to know you can direct your prayers elsewhere. I had another MRI a couple of days ago, and there has been no new cancer cells in the liver, and the cancer cells that were there were successfully treated by the proton therapy treatment. So thank you very much for your prayers. Okay, so I've been given a topic, so I will stick to the topic, and so here we go. And if we could go to the next slide. So again, thank you for inviting me to share some thoughts with you on this theme of association, a concept that is fundamental to the birth of the Brothers of the Christian Schools. I congratulate the leadership of this district as you celebrate your 10th anniversary for organizing this event. And it's a great opportunity for me to be present to all of you in one space, but it's also for me, and I think for you, a concrete expression of Lasallian association. Together, we belong to something larger than our own educational community. We are partners in a global mission that brings hope to young people in Ontario, in Michigan, in New Jersey, and also to 1 million other students in 80 countries around the world. To each of you, I express my heartfelt gratitude for your uniting and dedication to the children, young people, and adults entrusted to your care. In an environment permeated by the loving presence of God, you provide your students and clients a trusted space to express their anxieties and their dreams. You are mentors, teachers, guides, companions, and older sisters and older brothers, helping others to increase their awareness of their innate dignity as children of God. This is perhaps the finest expression of Lasallian association, to generously provide places where the mark of the reign of God, inclusion, peace, and respect, are lived out in a trusting and secure environment. Places where cultural diversity is not an occasion for conflict, exclusion, or destructive tension, but rather where being different is an enriching component of community life. By way of introduction, I would like to emphasize that Lasallian Association for the Human and Christian Education is part of our DNA, our Lasallian story, and our charism. Studies of the beginning reveal to us a priest, some women, and a small group of men committed to the education of the sons of the artisans and the poor. So we see from the very beginning, it was a mission that was shared. Why association? Because it was and is only by being together for a project that we can manage to change a situation for the better. Together we can do more than doing something by ourselves. Association was born to make universal in space and time the experience of a community for the education of the poor. Association is the guarantee that the community will continue beyond its concrete existence in a given place and at a given moment. At the start of these remarks, it's necessary to briefly speak on the origins of the word association. Not always a strong word in our culture. But why is it significant for our Lasallian story? An early biographer of de La Salle succinctly described a crisis that threatened the creation of this new educational movement. He said, "This was the sad situation in which the pious teacher found himself at the end of 1690. After so many crosses and so much persecution, after so many apparent successes, he found himself in almost the same situation that he had been in 10 years previously, with few brothers, making hardly any progress in his work, and fearful of seeing it perish." That time, De La Salle and two brothers made the historic vow of association on November 21st, 1691, in the midst of a crisis described as the sad situation in which the pious teacher, John Baptist de La Salle, found himself. It was their response, this vow of association, to the sad situation. And in doing so, they committed themselves to a future still to be realized. And the vow of association also determined the structure of the fragile community in the midst of this crisis. From the experience of the previous 10 years, De La Salle also realized that it was not enough to professionally prepare his teachers. He had to create men of the Spirit. The project would only be successful if it was built on firm spiritual foundations. So after the crises of 1691, he would dedicate the rest of his life to creating men firmly attuned to the Holy Spirit. Because we know that the strength of the Holy Spirit is displayed in human weakness. And the creative force is seen in shaky, often tentative achievements, which are sometimes tainted with ambiguity. De La Salle's deep faith in divine providence allowed him to live with this ambiguity. There was a mission assembly here 8 years ago, and former Brother Superior General, Brother Alvaro, he drew your attention to De La Salle's last will and testament, where he identified the brothers of the Christian schools as his associates. De La Salle had walked with them with the understanding that together they had been called by God to association for mission. Brother Alvaro then cited De La Salle's last recommendation in his last will and testament. And he said this to the first brothers: "You must maintain close union among yourselves and blind obedience to your superiors." We continue that close union. I'm not sure about the blind obedience. Brother Alvaro said this was not some pious advice to these brothers. Rather, in the beginning, there was a passion. There was a passion for the education of the poor. At the intersection of the cries of the poor and the attention to the presence of a loving God, those first brothers experienced a new way of understanding and a new way of judging their social context, and a new way of responding to urgent educational needs of the poor, defending their rights and their dignity. So it was this that they were being called to be obedient, to listen to the call of the Spirit. More than a commitment to become a member of an organization, the vow spoke to a way of life. It's a dynamic of relationships. It's a way of being. And it's a distinctive sign which constitutes the identity of the emerging community. By this vow, these three persons committed themselves to constructing a future. We cannot, therefore, speak of association in isolation. It is an awareness of one's social context and responding to that context with others. Association is the result of establishing relationships and building a community with a very clear purpose in mind: the well-being of the poor, the vulnerable, the abandoned, and indeed the needs of all young people. Lasallian Association is for mission and is rooted in Christian spirituality. We know, as social beings, humans are capable of establishing meaningful relationships. As spiritual beings, we're open to transcendental reality and the search for life's meaning. Every human being seeks to find meaning in life. And the search is not always linked with the religious or the divine, but also can spring from the values that each person considers important, on which he or she bases their lifestyle and their most decisive choices. Therefore, all who share the Lasallian mission, whether Christians or from other traditions, feel called to deepen and share the meaning of their existence. What is the situation that sustains us from within? What makes us overcome the difficulties of life? What inspires us to go beyond who we are and what we do? Could these not be the same questions de La Salle asked himself when he left his privileged status to become one with the world of the poor? We must not lose sight of this spiritual dimension when trying to understand the experience of Lasallian Association. Whether in Rhode Island, New York, or Washington, D.C., everything centers on establishing new relationships with our environment, with persons, with society, and with nature. Relations and structures are the key. The task is to create new relationships and to develop them as alternatives for sharing life, work, religion, general behavior, and ethical norms. Establishing and understanding relationships in a new way are characteristics of the passage from applying reason as the organizer to recognizing our mutual need to belong. Association for Educational Service concretizes meaningful relationships for promoting human dignity, solidarity among all human beings, and the integral development of the individual. Sadly, as we know, if we review the news from Pennsylvania, Maryland, Florida, and indeed around the world, it clearly demonstrates that we are witnessing increasingly intolerance, lack of courtesy, and senseless violence in our world. We are living in a world where feelings are more important than facts, where fake news proliferates, and opinions are regarded as factual statements. As educators, how do we respond to these falsehoods? What is the best way to inspire social media immersed young people to be attentive to the cries of the poor? At our papal audience with Pope Francis last May, he asked Lasallians to create a culture of resurrection. How can we announce Jesus' resurrection through actions that invite our students to be people who spread hope through social media? Their way of welcoming, their way of smiling, their way of loving. Can we do more to show our students that the power of the resurrection makes us capable of loving, even when the news reports that even love has lost its meaning? Integral to the spirit of association is the commitment to be witnesses to fraternity by creating educational communities that radiate sisterhood and brotherhood. And the building of fraternity necessarily includes the desire and ability to encounter and dialogue with others, particularly those who are different. Encounter and dialogue are the building blocks of fraternity. Being builders of sisterhood and brotherhood is our response to the cries of the poor and the discordance so evident in our world today. Meeting and conversing with others, especially those who are different, can break down preconceptions, prejudices, and assumptions. Together we can find common ground for cooperation and collaboration. As superior of the brothers, I have had the privilege of experiencing the Lasallian mission in 70 countries thus far. 10 more to go. But it's been an experience that fills me with joy and fills me with hope. When I look at our reality today, I see more and more of our Lasallian partners participating in the Lasallian mission. Lasallians from other faith traditions are connected and committed to the mission. More and more educators share their own gifts and talents and competencies in running our institutions. And we are partnering with other like-minded institutions that promote the education of young people. And there are emerging forms of spirituality and community life centered on the Lasallian mission. I meet so many brothers, so many teachers, so many care workers who are inspired by John Baptist de La Salle's deep relationship with Jesus Christ, and who echo the gospel, the concluding chapter from St. Matthew's Gospel, when we ask, Lord, when did I see you illiterate and teach you to read? Bullied by mean-spirited classmates and protect you? Hyperactive and disruptive and treat you patiently and kindly? Trapped in a vicious circle of poverty and ignorance and free you through a human and Christian education? Denied an education because of your immigration status and welcomed you to my school? Most of these Lasallians are just like you and me. They are engaged in the day in and day out task of educating the young. But they are, however, anything but ordinary. With their admirable concern for others, their generous service, and their happy presence, they awaken others to be kind, merciful, and welcoming. These fired-up Lasallians are not researchers of educational theory. They are practical, hands-on women and men who really do make their educational communities experiences of affirmation, respect, inclusion, and welcome. They put the economically poor student on center stage and make them protagonists of the educational dynamic. For example, I've encountered living examples of fired-up Lasallians at what we call the Bamboo School. It was founded by 5 women, and it is made of bamboo. And it's located on the border of Thailand and Myanmar, what was once known as Burma. And it houses children of immigrant families who are stateless and without civil rights. The children are denied access to Thai schools, and this Lasallian educational community presents them with their only accessible educational opportunity. The school is free, and every day each family contributes a small plate of rice. The rice is enriched with nutritional components and often serves as the only meal the children will have that day. And the school assists in regularizing the children's immigration status with Thai authorities so they can become a member of a state, of a country. Like these 5 women, in all parts of our institute, I see that women have a special role in our ministries because as bearers of new life, they enrich their zeal with affection, sensitivity, and tenderness. We should all be attentive to ensuring that women are well represented at all levels of Lasallian leadership institutions, all levels of leadership everywhere. I also encountered inspirational Lasallians in Roubaix, France. Unemployment, social deprivation characterized this poor urban area populated by Muslim immigrants. The assistant director of the school describes herself as a Muslim Lasallian. She was effusive in her gratitude for the welcome the brothers had given her as a child of parents with little financial means, and for the encouragement that they gave her to continue her education. She was grateful for the openness of the Catholic Church to differences. She was almost in tears as she expressed what it meant to her to assimilate the Lasallian values and to transmit them to the young people in the neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, there is a community of 3 Octogenarian brothers. Our mandate to witness to the gospel is not determined by age. And these brothers are all involved in a variety of activities with the parents of the students, with the surrounding community. They assist a group of Romani people in a nearby neighborhood. They teach in a literacy program and are involved in parish activities and prepare their own meals. In the doorway to the house, I notice a bicycle air pump. It's available to the young people who frequently come to the community for conversation with the brothers. These men are an example of a fraternal and open Lasallian community that impels people to experience God's loving presence. And I am sure that if you stop to contemplate your colleagues at your own school or university or child care ministry, you too are inspired by women and men who truly are ministers of God and ambassadors of Jesus Christ. These people are, in simple and unassuming ways, agents of transformation. Through their behavior, they show students that they can contribute to a world that is more compassionate and just for everyone. In their own way, they heard a voice from saying, "Whom shall I send? Who will be my messenger?" And they answered, "I will go. Send me." We often speak of our educational institutions as spaces of transformation. But to be transformed, first we must meet people who are different, not our family, our friends, our neighbors who are like us. Lasallian education communities encourage personal encounters with those who are considered different, undesirable, despised, beneath us, disposable. It was John Baptist de La Salle's encounter with Jesus that prepared him for that all-important, upsetting, and determinative meeting with Adrian Niel that marked the beginning for the upheaval of the internal universe that was de La Salle's life at the time. It marked the perceptible taking hold of a process of interior and social liberation, which brought him to a point where he had neither the intention, the desire, nor the courage to go by himself. Our educational communities must be built on mutual respect, and mutual respect means service to the person of Christ. Cooperation is between brothers and sisters in Christ. This quality of respect must come and be nourished by personal encounters with the other. Reflecting about the ongoing migration of human persons, Pope Francis reminds us that a change of attitude towards migrants and refugees is needed on the part of everyone, moving away from the attitudes of defensiveness and fear, indifference and marginalization, all typical of the throwaway culture, towards attitudes based on a culture of encounter, the only culture capable of building a better, more just, and fraternal world. With tolerance and mutual understanding between pupils of different religions, when that prevails in a school, we already have a tremendous example of human fraternity. Our communities, our educational centers, are called to bring people together. Pope Francis again says, Catholic schools and universities are places promoting a culture of encounter. Encounter with the others who will bear for us abundant fruit when it's enriched by dialogue. Dialogue is the search for mutual understanding, and the desired points of encounter. And that requires us to listen attentively, respectfully, with empathy and compassion. During this year, we have been celebrating the 300th anniversary of the death of John Baptist de La Salle. For most of those past 3 centuries, the brothers were the authors of the Lasallian narrative. Today, all of us gathered in association, brothers and Lasallian partners, we are now writing the Lasallian story. We are now writing the next chapters. Our Lasallian anniversary year has been the celebration of John Baptist de La Salle's encounter with Jesus Christ that eventually turned his world upside down. He was on the road to a comfortable ecclesiastical career. He was ordained a priest and appointed a canon at the great Gothic cathedral in Reims. But he was attentive to the whispering of the Holy Spirit and attuned to the cry of the poor. So he left the security of his upper middle class family and associated himself with a bunch of uncouth fellows to form what over time became known as the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools. Today, each one of us is invited to hear the cries of those who are poor, who are marginalized, who are addicted, who are illiterate, or who are hungry for knowledge. They are calling us to be beacons of hope and purveyors of well-being. Our Association for the Lasallian Mission of Human and Christian Education is a response, a concrete response to those who are calling us. From the very beginning of the Lasallian story, a call is heard, is a cry that comes from the children of the artisans and the poor. And it is chanted by all children and young people who are in need of education. The cry does not abate throughout the entire narrative. In reality, it is sustaining our story. It puts into actions its protagonists, and it attracts new actors to participate in the story. And we can see that the story will end when the cry is no longer heard. So today, let us renew our commitment to the human and Christian education of our sisters and brothers, especially those who are on the margins of our society. Let us once again open our hearts and respond. I will go. Send me to bring the good news to all God's people. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Bob, for your unique international perspective and your words of inspiration, encouragement, and challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, one and all, could we give one more round of applause for our Superior General? At this time, we invite people in the various areas of our district to enter into breakout conversations. So we now turn this live stream into live action wherever you are, where you will have a conversation together. And we will resume here to have some questions for Brother Bob to answer at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see you back here at 12:15. Thank you. So welcome back to DENA Associative Celebration. Hopefully you had good conversation where you are. We now turn our attention to some questions from Lasallians that they want to pose to Brother Robert. So our first questioner is right here in the audience at DENA's greatest university. And Skip Gauze will ask a question of Brother Robert. Brother Robert, welcome back.
Brother Robert.
Yes.
It's been 9 years since Circular 461, Associated for Lasallian Mission, an Act of Hope. And I'm wondering, you gave us some insight in your talk this morning about association as you've seen it moving through the regions of the world. Could you give us some thoughts and observations, some more thoughts and observations on the growth, changes, and manifestation of models of association that you've seen? And kind of a follow-up thought, any of those models, because we talk about association being for mission, moving mission forward, any models that you've seen that are moving mission forward of association?
Okay. Thanks, Skip, and congratulations again for the award. I'm always happy to receive questions. I'm delighted when I have questions, and Brother Timothy will answer them. Let me say a few things in regard to the question. As you and some of you know, association is expressed in different ways. In some parts of the Institute, people want to make a public commitment. In other parts, they don't feel a need for that. So we have a great diversity on how to approach it. And as I have gone around the Institute, my focus is kind of shifting away from defining an associate, because it's always invitational. It can never be imposed. But what I've been observing is an increase in the number of mixed communities, virtual communities of brothers and Lasallian educators, sisters, and priests. And I'm seeing that as an emerging identity of who we are associated for a mission. They come into a community, whether virtually or an actual community, and for the purpose of a mission. An example, in Spain today, there are 42 mixed communities of brothers and Lasallian educators, some with their families. The children, they're all there. And they focus on a particular mission. In France, for example, what happened there is we have about 130 schools in France. Very few brothers in the schools, because many of them are older, but there's still some. But they decided a few years ago to identify 40 of those 130 schools where they wanted to focus their attention. Now, these were ministries in direct service with the poor. And they called forth 600 people, brothers and Lasallian educators, to take joint responsibility for those 40. And as a result, those 600 people have been forming their own communities, mixed communities together or virtual. And out of that 600 group, 170 people have decided to make a public commitment. So I'm seeing more communities coming together of different groups associating together for a particular mission. And I think of in our own region here, when you look back on the Lasallian volunteer movement, you've had over 30, now it's I think their 30th anniversary, you've had young people, fresh university graduates, who choose to live in community with the brothers for 1 year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. And many of them continue in the Lasallian mission. And I think there's about a dozen of them today who are principals and presidents of some of our schools in the United States. For me, I think that's where we need to really evolve our focus on association for mission. I don't know if that answers all your questions, Skip, but okay. Next question.
Hello, Brother Robert. I'm Jamie Longo, the Executive Director of the De La Salle Institute for Advanced Teaching and Learning here at LaSalle University. I started out in the Lasallian world as a student in 1994, continued as an adjunct throughout my time in graduate school, and joined the mission full-time in 2007. My question has to do with the Lasallian world's religious diversity. In a climate where our schools have increasing numbers of non-Catholics, non-Christians, and nuns among both staff and students, how do we find ways to foster association that recognize the powerful and sustaining resonances in our values without alienating those who might feel othered by more traditional associative approaches?
Thank you for the question, I think. I recall, and some of you who participated in what used to be the Lasallian Leadership Institute, I recall we had a video, and there was a Lasallian educator from Sri Lanka. And in the video, she was explaining her commitment as a Lasallian and what the Lasallian values meant to her and how she uses them, those values, in working with our students and our fellow teachers. At the end of the video, you see her standing before a statue of Buddha. And her last words are, Saint LaSalle was just like our Buddha. I think everyone who saw the video assumed she was a Christian, she was a Catholic, but she was a Buddhist. As are about 400,000 of our students who are either Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, whatever. And again, going back to the idea, it's, oh, she's not there. I am very bad technologically. Going back to my response to Skip, association is invitational. And the initiative, in terms of how you relate to different religious traditions or to the nuns, is it's welcoming. It's welcoming. It's how you relate to the students. I mean, yes, our young people, our nuns, as she was saying, have lost faith in civil institutions, have lost faith in religious institutions, have lost faith in the church. But they haven't lost faith in you. They haven't lost faith in you. You're the one making the connections with young people every day. And we talk about touching hearts. What's more than a phrase or a metaphor? I've seen you touch hearts. You make a difference in the lives of young people. And so I have been impressed and inspired by how others take ownership of association and live it in a manner that connects with their own culture, their own faith tradition. And again, I think that's a gift that we have, that we share with people of different faiths. The example I gave during my presentation about the Muslim woman. She wanted to be in a Catholic school because she said, your faith is inclusive. You're open to everybody. You welcome us. So, thank you for the question. Somebody else?
Hello, this is Elisa Saros from LaSalle Academy in Providence, Rhode Island. And bear with me, I had to write some of this down. This year is the 30th anniversary on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which has become a flagship cause of the Institute. You recently announced the Beyond the Borders initiative, and on September 9th, you and the General Council issued a statement for World Migrant and Refugee Day in which you invited all districts and local communities to initiate and/or strengthen their commitment to migrants and refugees around the world. There's been an attention recently to actions on behalf of the integrity of creation. What is your personal message for Lasallians in terms of engagement on these matters of justice and solidarity? Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. I think we need to be more vocal around issues affecting our world today. We sometimes talk about being advocates, and we talk about advocacy, but we don't always do it. And we need to be much more aggressive in advocating for things we believe in. And I think we take our key from our young people. You think of Malala and violence against women and what she's been able to do as an individual. The students in Parkland, Florida, who came out after the gun violence. The young woman, I think, was Denmark or Sweden for the environment. We need to support our young people, stand with our young people, accompany our young people, and allow them to accompany us to respond to the challenges that are in our world. I go across the Institute. A lot of things are happening locally. A lot of our schools are welcoming refugees. We have a program in the border of Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria, where we have 2 educational centers we set up with volunteers, with young people and brothers who are educating at this point 600 refugee children coming from Syria and Iraq. We need to advocate that kind of involvement and respond to it. So I can only encourage that we take a stand. We take a stand. Our young people are taking a stand, and they look to us to be supportive of them, whatever the issue happens to be in whatever particular culture. And yes, it's always risky, but I keep thinking of one of the brothers in the Philippines, the Lasallians in the Philippines. They were right out in the streets. They're right out in the streets. And right now, the visitor of the Philippines is being charged with treason by the Philippine government, along with the vice president of the country. But because they're not going to sit back and allow this extrajudicial execution of people suspected of drugs. So we need to be much more vocal. Next question, also up here.
Good morning, Brother Robert. It's wonderful to have you here celebrating with us in DENA this morning. My name is Lois Haar, and I'm the Director of Campus Ministry and Social Action, and I'm also an Assistant Vice President in Student Life at Manhattan College. And this is my 22nd year working at Manhattan. My question for you this morning has to do with the role of women in our Lasallian family. We know that fewer than 3% of all Lasallian educators are actually vowed members or brothers, and that more than 50% of all Lasallian educators are women. So my question is, what is your vision and your plan for stewarding the Institute into our 4th century and making sure to maximize and use the gifts and talents of all the women in the Lasallian family?
Thank you, Lois, for the question. What has inspired me regarding this question is don't wait for Rome to do something. And already I've been inspired by the Lasallian women who have organized symposiums, retreats, workshops. We've had 2 in Asia. We've had 1 here in the United States. We've had 1 in Latin America. So don't wait for Rome. At the same time, going back to the last question, this is an issue where I have to be vocal. This is an issue where I have to advocate, because our structure is based on the life structure of the brothers, and it makes it very difficult. We have our own glass ceiling, and we got to address that. We have to advocate. And so what I've been trying to do, short term, long term. Short term, I'm at a situation where I have to intervene, because our current structures, for example, we have an International Mission Council. And part of the criteria that was designed for membership was the person in charge of a region, the mission in a region, would be a member of this council. Well, at the moment, the 5 regional leaders are either brothers or men. So I have to make interventions. So I appointed 5 women to that body. The other area, as some of you know, we will be having our 3rd International Mission Assembly next May in Rome. This is an assembly that was started to allow you to have voice and vote in the mission of the Institute. For me, I had to change the criteria of how people are elected to this assembly as delegates, because the first two, there were too many brothers. And there were few women. So we revised the criteria so that the majority are women. And we allowed one brother from each of the districts. So right now in short term, there has to be intervention from me in order for this to happen. And it was important to do it for the Mission Assembly because whatever decisions the Mission Assembly makes, it all comes to the Brothers General Chapter where it's all brothers who finalize the voting on it. So that's one response. In the short term, I need to make interventions. In the long term, having the experience of previous general chapters where brothers make decisions for the next 7 years, our general council and I are advocating that the next general chapter will not have the usual standing commissions on all aspects of our life and mission, and then create propositions, and then create documents that have to be read and written first. We're advocating that we just 2 themes for the next general chapter. 1, association for mission, which is what we're all about, and 2, leadership and governance. And that implies looking at the current structures and how to change those structures so that we all are involved at the highest levels of decision making for the mission. Thank you.
My name is Tom Sipowicz, and I'm at St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C. I'm the Director of Mission Integration, and I've been here 22 years. My question for Brother Robert is, what do you see in both society and education as the greatest unmet needs and possible next frontier for the Institute? Thank you.
I think all of you know better than I the pervasiveness of social media and how it impacts both positively but also negatively of our young people. So I think a great need, as I mentioned in my remarks, is how do we respond to that? How do we respond to what the young people are getting through social media? As we sit here having this wonderful discussion and question and answer, social media is already sending out things. Marketing is sending out things to young people. How do we respond to that? And you know how to respond to it better than I, but I think we need to be attentive to that. The unmet needs, the United Nations tells us at the moment there are 263 million children not in any kind of school or education. 263 million. Those are unmet needs. And that's one of the reasons we had this Beyond the Border project in starting new ministries in places where there is no opportunity for young people to go to school. We're also collaborating much more with other congregations of brothers and sisters, especially the Marist brothers, and setting up new ministries. My number 2 brother, Brother Jorge, right now is in Mexico talking to the superiors of the Marist brothers there to open up a new project on the border of Mexico and the United States to respond to the reality that's there. So we need to be active in these kind of new projects, which are also happening at the district level. DENA has done a great job in terms of reaching out to new ministries in Homestead, Florida, for young Mexican children immigrants, moving into Puerto Rico. You all help our works in East Africa, Luanga district. So we need to continue to do that kind of collaboration and networking. So I hope that's a response that we can take the risk of starting something new, no matter how fragile it might be. Okay? Any more?
Hello, my name is Kanan Clark. I am the Director of College Counseling here at St. Joseph's Collegiate Institute. I am in my 7th year with the ministry here. My question to Brother Robert is, the world is ever changing very vastly and very different than I'm sure when it was when you first became a brother. So I'd like to know if you'd be willing to share what challenges you think that you face personally and or the brothers as a whole in today's ever-changing times.
Thank you for the question. We're about 3,500 brothers in the world today. We have 90,000 women and men sisters and priests, reaching 1 million students. We have the Institute as an international body. We have the International Association of Lasallian Universities as an international body. We have an Association of Former Students, International. We have what's called Signum Fidei movement, people who join freely a community and take on a project for the Lasallian education. If we can network much more effectively, those 4 networks, imagine the impact we can have educationally. So for me, the challenge has been, how do I get those 4 networks to cooperate more efficiently and effectively? We can do so much more in addition to what we're already doing. But we need our networks at an international level, but then also what you're doing at a local level, working with local other community organizations, NGOs, and other congregations. So I find that as my big challenge. How can we get these associations international to network much more effectively to meet the needs of children who don't have the opportunity that we all had by receiving a Lasallian education? Thank you. Any more?
Hi, Brother Robert. My name is Michael Scaramuzzo. I teach theology and I'm the campus minister at St. John Paul II Academy in Boca Raton, Florida. This is my 6th year in Lasallian Ministries. I'm an alumnus of St. Peter's Boys High School in Staten Island, and this is my 2nd year in Boca Raton. My question is, how do you feel the role of an educator has changed in your time as a brother, and what challenges do you think we face as an institute to educate the youth of the new evangelization?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your new work down at John Paul II Academy, coming from New York. I feel that I may have responded somewhat to that question in my previous responses, so I'm not sure if I have anything in addition to add. Yeah. In fact, I'm at a particular age that there's not that many synapses in the brain. And as a result, I already forgot what I was going to say. But I think, well, first of all, since I remember the last part, we're actually at a stage, as you know, of not new evangelization, but pre-evangelization. And not only our students, but their parents. And so what I see as I go around different places is the engagement in pre-evangelization and the efforts to accept the young people where they are and work with them from where they are and not where we think they should be. And not where maybe even the church says, well, you got to start here. No, you got to start where the children are. You got to start where the kids are and then work with them. And so I think our efforts are more focused nowadays on pre-evangelization than they are in evangelization. We'll get there, but we need to, and that's not only our students, I think it's our young teachers also. Our young teachers, as I said earlier, young people have lost faith in our church and civil institutions, but they haven't lost faith in us. And I think that's a tribute to what you do every day. Thank you.
Step to the side, and then we'll have your presentation with Colleen. So once again, a big round of applause for Brother Bob Schieler. So we have 3 last little things to do, so we hope those of you out there in Streamland and those of you here will stay together. I'd like to now invite up to the stage Brother Ernest, the Vice President for Mission and the 29th President of LaSalle University, Dr. Colleen Hanich.
The Brother Tilio Feckle FSC Presidential Medal, recognized as one of LaSalle University's highest honors, is bestowed upon individuals who have distinguished themselves professionally, socially, and civically in line with the Lasallian mission and values. Additionally, this award uniquely recognizes those who have made significant contributions in their fields in ways that represent and live out the mission of Lasallian education. The legacy of St. John Baptist de La Salle's vision is the Roman Catholic Church's largest institute of religious brothers dedicated to the mission field of education. Together and by association with over 90,000 Lasallian educators, more than 3,500 brothers, the unique Lasallian heritage thrives in more than 1,000 schools, universities, and other centers of education in 79 countries around the world, serving more than 1 million students of all ages and backgrounds. Few international bodies today have the long history, the common heritage, and numerical force as the Lasallian Educational Network. In 2014, the Brothers of the Christian Schools elected a new Superior General, the 27th successor of St. LaSalle, as the leader of this institute and the Lasallian world. For just the third time in the Institute's history, a Superior General comes from the United States. For the first time, they chose a native of Philadelphia and an alumnus of LaSalle, Brother Robert Schieler, FSC. He received a bachelor's degree in modern European history from LaSalle and later earned master's degrees at the University of Notre Dame and the University of the Philippines, and a doctorate in educational administration from the University of Pennsylvania. As Superior General, Brother Robert, with his General Counsel, holds responsibility for ensuring that the links in the global Lasallian educational community remain vital and vibrant. Lasallian ministries may be separated by culture, geography, and language, yet they are bound together and by our association. Notwithstanding his accomplishments as a teacher and leader, culminating in his election as Superior General, Brother Robert is, above all, a brother among brothers. To him, that means adhering to a life of faith, dedicating himself to the quest for achieving the common good, and an unwavering commitment to his brothers and their partners, zealously working with young people and adults, especially those impoverished and marginalized around the world. Dr. Hanich, because Brother Robert faithfully carries on the legacy of St. John Baptist de La Salle, the patron saint of educators, the namesake of this university, it is with great honor that I present Brother Robert Schieler, FSC, to receive the Brother Tilio Feckle FSC Presidential Medal for outstanding integrity, merit, and public service.
Thank you. Brother Robert, we recognize the tremendous responsibility you bear in the call to lead the Brothers of the Christian Schools and the worldwide Lasallian community, and to encourage and support the work of the Brothers and Lasallian partners. Allow us to express our deepest appreciation for your dedication to this ministry and our tremendous pride in the integrity and faithfulness that you witness in your vocation as a De La Salle brother. We consider you one of our greatest LaSalle University explorers. As an ambassador for the church, the brothers, and the wider Lasallian world, you witness a spirit of faith and zeal that St. LaSalle and his first brothers held as signs that God has called us to work in the vineyards for the good of all. In gratitude for your steadfast commitment to the Lasallian charism and our mission, it is my distinct honor to present you with the Brother Tilio Feckle FSC Presidential Medal. Congratulations.
Brother Robert asked if he was finished, and I think he's finished, but we have 2 more things to do. First, we'd like to have a closing prayer, and I'd like to introduce the General Counselor for our region of North America. So escorting Brother Robert throughout our ministries for these 2 weeks and working side by side with him in Rome and on his behalf in the United States, we are grateful for the presence and the work of Brother Timothy Caldwell.
Thank you. I have come that they may have life and have it in abundance, says Jesus. These prophetic words this afternoon are very much at the heart and life of our mission. These words are also at the heart of today's 10th anniversary and birthday celebration for the mission in Eastern North America. And so I invite you to join me in giving thanks for the abundant life that we enjoy as we open our hearts in prayer. Loving God, you are the source of life, life itself. And today we feel a very special mix of humility and pride that you have called us forth and called us in the depths of our heart and the depths of our soul to serve you and to meet you in the lives of youth and young adults. We give you humble thanks for the life-giving association that we share. Today and tomorrow, help us to give birth. Show us how to bring others into this abundance. Lead us to live into the promise of resurrected life. We also celebrate the pride that we feel for being called forth into a culture of resurrection, a culture of giving new life, a culture of second and third and fourth chances, a culture of dedication to one another's growth, a culture of going the extra mile. And so, loving God, we give you thanks for today, and we give you thanks for the blessing of nourishment that we will soon share, and especially for those who have prepared it. We thank you for the life that you give us and for the opportunity to share that life with one another. St. John Baptist de LaSalle, and live Jesus in our hearts.
So remember, there's one more thing we have to do. It's the only thing separating us from lunch. This is a birthday celebration. So throughout DENA, there are birthday cakes that will be circulating. And how can we have a birthday cake without a song that maybe we know? So those of us in our auditorium here, led by Brother Joe Doherty, who has traveled all the way from Long Island to be with us, we'd like to sing happy birthday to us, happy birthday to us, happy birthday, dear DENA, happy birthday to us. I hope you remember the words. Brother Joe, take it away. Birthday to